Welcome back again. Fred here, and in today's video we're gonna discuss War and Peace from Leo Tolstoy. This thick bad boy, which is the thickest book I have ever read in my life, and maybe even will. I mean, it's literally like this book it can kill me if I fall asleep with it reading. This book is amazing, and it's amazing in a completely different kind as, for example, a book like Surrounded by Idiots. If you haven't seen the video yet, make sure you do. I uploaded it last time. This book is a fiction book. It's based on historical events, but Leo Tolstoy, he doesn't want this book to be put in a box. He says it's not a historical novel, it's not just a fiction book, it's not like a poem, blah blah blah. It's nothing like that. It's something on its own. If you read this book, you can really tell that that's the case. For example, this book tries to describe when Napoleon invades Russia in 1805 and then 1812-13. This book plays around that time. It's basically about a few characters, a few families, a few Russian wealthy families. It's all about their perspective. Rich families with young kids. The young kids grow up, they have to fight in the army when Napoleon invades. Some get promoted, come back rich, some die. My lesson, or what I took away from this book, I don't want to just talk about the story in this book, I want to talk about how it had an impact on me. That's what's so interesting about this book. And I think you might read this book and come up with a completely different lesson, a completely different view on life. But this is how I viewed it, and I think it's super, super cool and interesting. In my eyes, Tolstoy, with this super thick book, so there's a lot of character development, a lot of insights, how they think, what they do, everything they think is basically being written. And there's one character, Pierre, who likes to think a lot. He stays up at night, he reads a lot of books, he makes a lot of notes about the books he reads. He always seems to come to no conclusion, actually. He always thinks there's so much more information that I need to make a good decision. It's not exactly how he says it, but that's how I feel that he thinks, because he gets into a real depression in this book. He just cannot sleep, he's just thinking, and he never seems to come to any conclusion, and he becomes very absent-minded. He's not really present in the moment anymore, and he just gets lost a little bit. I think it's so cool to think about it, because when you read this book and you read about this character, all I think about is there's always something we don't know, and that something we don't know is probably gonna make a huge impact on how we make our decisions in life. So how do we find out what we don't know? Well, we can try to be open-minded and speak to other people and try to become convinced that maybe my initial standpoint is not true, but he never seems to get to that point. He just becomes absent-minded, doesn't know what to think anymore, almost becomes delusional to some point. He doesn't know what's going on anymore. And it just made me wonder, in life, is there a moment where we can objectively make a good decision? Or is there always information we lack? Is there always something we don't process? And that's something very interesting to think about, and also something quite depressing, because how do we make a good decision? Is there a benchmark for it? For me, I just came to the conclusion, we try our best to get the most amount of knowledge that we can process, and with that make a good decision. But if everyone does that, we are all, to some perspective, wrong. Is that depressive? I don't know. I think it's just the way life is, It makes us human. We cannot process everything. So we never know if we make the right decision with the amount of information that we have or did not have. Well, this book talks a lot about it, and Tolstoy also mentions a lot about his own opinion about life decisions. He always says, what moves nations? Were the whole armies moved because of Napoleon? Was it a bigger ideal that moved the nations? There has to be, to some extent, something that makes things move other than just one person. And he tries to describe this, and it's super interesting. There's so much in this book that I want to talk about, but I just want to keep it as short as I can and just take this one little thing that I think is very interesting. And for me, that's really the perspective part and the information part and the circumvention of knowledge. To not just tackle an idea from one side, but as this author does, he talks about person A, and then person B was somewhere else, and then person C was somewhere else, and then D, E, until it's almost like a circle. And in the end, you're like, is this then the truth? Is this the best decision that could have been made? Was Napoleon in general wrong? What did he do? Was it really up to him even? For example, when Napoleon moved to Moscow and finally conquered Moscow, the Russians basically burned most of the city. and moved out. And Napoleon was deciding, should he stay in Russia or should he move out and move to the south? And in the end, it became like a super ugly event where they were basically both starving to death in a cold winter. Who is right, who's wrong, no one really knows. And that just makes this so interesting about knowledge in general. How do we now even know who is wrong, who is right? We read all these biographies about Napoleon, but who says that these events actually happened like that, that Napoleon really ordered it like that? There is no answer, and that's the beauty of it. That's what makes this book come to life for me. The whole idea of Leo Tolstoy to tell a story is not, this is how the story goes. He always tells the story how he thinks it goes, and then there's this one chapter where he describes, but maybe if I'm wrong, but maybe if they're wrong, but maybe if they're wrong. It's this whole view that makes it so interesting. That's what I wanted to talk about. I hope you think it's interesting. If you don't, still read the book because there's so much else in there. You can also just read it as a fiction book, but for me, it just makes these questions so interesting, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So if you are up for the challenge, read this book. It's super cool. I urge you to just buy a physical version, because then you actually realize what a bad boy you've been reading for the past months. Yeah, that's all for now. I really want to thank you for watching the video. Please leave a comment on what you think about what I've said. Do you think I'm mental now? Do you think it was interesting? Are you also planning on reading it? Let me know. Also, download Goodreads, super cool app to keep track of what you're reading and to get ideas and inspiration from your friends, see what they're reading. And as always, like and subscribe, stay positive, be happy, Fred out.